Hi guys, welcome to Cult Fans, and thank you for dealing with our brief technical difficulties. I'm Minerva. Shay is stuck at work, so we have Chris with us today, and Stacy, as ever, will be pulling up our center. But for now, let's get to who everyone is really here for. The man behind the mask, Joshua Todd. Hi Josh, how you doing?
I'm amazing. How are you guys?
I'm hating Comcast right now, but
Oh
um,
yeah, it was awful.
now we may have unraveled the mystery for the people who didn't know who fired that arrow. They just knew of the wolf. But you do a lot of things on set, and I mean a lot. And we're going to explore some of those today, but if you could list in a couple of minutes, both on screen and off, the miscellaneous things you've done, just go ahead and start spilling.
Sure. Set building, concept art, weapons and props building, random crazy prop building, armor, and that's both for weapons and like literal armor. A little bit of costuming help. I'm kind of everyone's assistant when they need a pair of hands. Driver, I did props master stuff for the first like 15 minutes of the pilot when that was in Ireland. What else? Creature suit, stunt performer. I was in every suit of armor that we had, and I played a drunken bar goer every other day, and just a backgrounds person every other day. I've probably been an extra 13 or 15 times, probably more so now. And I was also, I believe, the motion capture.
Me of you.
There's an army of me, but they're both Border Guard and Covenant, so they really don't get anything done but kind of just sit around all day and make stuff, play video games, and agree with each other. It's kind of a perfect world, I think.
I mean, honestly, just real quick here, looking at your work, it feels like a perfect world. To us over here, it's Nerdvana. The audience right now
Yes.
is getting to see you in a cape smithing a sword. So now, some of this we've covered previously when we were part of Order of the Outpost, but for those who haven't seen yet, you've done work on a theme park, right? So can you tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about Evermore?
Sure. It's an immersive theme park that's much like a LARPer's paradise mixed with Universal Studios, but with a flavor of steampunk and Tolkien society. I think that sums it up nice and well.
Uh, that's like that to me, it kind of knocks the breath out of me. Like, I don't even know what to say. The trailers for it I've seen are so fantastic.
Yeah, it's crazy. We opened up a soft opening 2 weeks ago, and we've been kind of going. We're not completely finished yet, so we have a lot of stuff that we're still working on behind the scenes to hurry up and build it up because we want to give everyone everything that we've imagined going into the park. So I've been super busy myself doing. I'll start my day around 9 o'clock, 9:30. Building stuff for the park, like archery ranges and axe throwing ranges, and designing the stuff and designing runes and like these flags behind me, designing that kind of stuff, and sketching out archery targets with monsters on them and stuff. And then around 6 o'clock, I'll stop that work, and then I'll get a hood and grab my bow, and I head out to the range, and I'm actually the archer that instructs customers, guests, if you will, how to do archery. And I do that till about midnight, and then I go home.
Okay, like I know Stacy actually had some follow-up questions about your archery, so I'm gonna hold back a little bit on them. But since
Absolutely.
we entered with the wolf, I'm gonna do a real quick probe here and can you tell us, let's see, to discuss with the audience, you have a custom style the wolf has developed, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Tell them a little bit about that, your decision, and so on.
It's high fletching. I call it high fletching or high knocking. And when most people shoot a bow, they pull their knuckle or their fingertip, back to their molar and their cheek and the lips, and they pull back. When I pull back like this with my thumb on the back of my head, so the arrow lines up with my eyesight. So all I have to do is point where I want accurately.
As
And
you is technically correct.
sometimes, right, yeah. Sometimes when I shoot, the bow goes off to a cant, so I can see like this through the arrow. And then I've developed this method that's just me goofing off, where I pull the bow back and put it behind my head and shoot like that. Which you'll if you ever come to Evermore, you'll find me at the range goofing off and entertaining people by shooting in all kinds of ways. Sometimes I put 2 or 3 arrows on the rest, and I shoot 3 arrows at the target at the same time. The green arrow shot. But yeah, that's kind of my personalized style beat on it. Also, I wear glasses and I'm nearsighted, so if you see me out on the range squinting a lot, it's me trying to find the target because I can't see more than like 10 feet.
All right. Now, during a previous interview, you mentioned you were stoked about getting to like draw and design things for a living because you always used to like doodle fantastic ideas. Now, is that how you fell in with the Outpost, Narrow Storm, and these projects, or more specifically, can you tell us how you did fall in with them?
Absolutely. It's I'll try and condense it as much as possible. But when I lived in Utah in 2005 or 2000, oh no, sorry, it wasn't 2010, 2011. I worked for mortgage home modifications, just doing boring work. And at nights I would go home and do my leatherworking and just make stuff for me that I would eventually sell later to people that wanted it. But I was hooked up with for a mutual friend, with David Powell, who was at that time working on, I believe, Mythica 1 or some pre-movie to that. But he needed Greaves done, I believe. And at the time, someone was like, you should get Josh to do it. He's a leather worker. And he contacted me and spoke with me at length about making Greaves, to which I was like, oh, I can't do that because I don't really stitch leather. So if you need stitching, I can't really do that. And he's like, oh, well, we totally need to work together some other time. And I was like, yeah, no problem. And years rolled by, and I never met this guy. He was just a voice on social media and just some words floating in a box. And I kept, he would post something and I'd be like, oh, that's cool. And he'd be like, trying to get this. And I was like, have you tried this? And, and then vice versa. I would post things and he would be like, oh, that's cool. If you did it like this, it would yield this. So we just kind of, cross-pollinated our styles a little bit. And one day I made I don't want to say mistake, but definitely the opposite of that. I had the foresight to say, hey, it looks like you're having fun over there. If you need help during this movie, then let me know. And he was like, really? And then all of a sudden, like a week later, I got contacted with an offer to go to Utah, and I was back living in Florida at this time. And he was like, we need someone to build sets. They just need an art, and if you're kind of first in line because A, I know you, and B, you have an artistic eye in mind. So they need someone that can do strongman lifting lumber and stuff. And also this needs to be like this. And I accepted the offer and I flew. I found out about the offer Saturday. The offer was made Sunday. Tuesday, I was at work in Utah, flying out from Florida. And that's kind of how I got hooked up with Aerostorm. It's all David Powell's fault, really. Yeah.
Just blame David. Okay. No,
Yeah.
And we've heard a lot about how cohesively, how open and networking they are. They're not at a point where it's like, well, no, I'm going to turn up my nose, and everyone
Right.
networks and finds each other their strengths, which is really great.
Absolutely. It's better to have a village of artists working on one thing than it is, a few people that you're like, oh, like you said, turn your nose up and then find the best ones. But the problem is if you turn your nose up, you miss the people walking under you that don't really have a name for themselves yet, and they just do what they love to do. And at this day and age, with crafting the way it is and cosplay and everything else, there's thousands of people out there that are just uber talented at doing whatever they have dedicated their time and life to.
Okay, we're gonna actually have a follow-up with a lot of that here shortly. I'm actually gonna pass to Stacy because she had kind of a reel of questions here, so here we go.
No problem.
Hey, Josh, how you doing?
Hi, Stacy. How are you?
I'm good. It's great seeing you again. I know you had a little spell with us on the order when we were with them, so it's glad to have you here on Obey the Cult, Cult fans. So we did had you skim over some of your work, and you went over a lot of the characters that you did play in the Outpost. Do you have a roundabout number of how many characters you actually played, what was your favorite? What was your biggest thrill for the Outpost?
Oh, any characters I've played. If I leave out, the motion capture and all the copy and paste like me's that were just goofing off in armor, taking 3/4 poses, probably 15, maybe 17, because there'd be days where I'd be a grayskin, and they were like, "Do this," but then jump over there and do this in the same shot, and then they'd plate the shot so it's me in both like frames. So you got instead of cutting shots, it's just me goofing off here and me goofing off here. Which was fun. So I probably played 6 or 7 grayskins and probably 15 background characters. My favorite one to play was definitely the wolf. I think at one point his code name was Blue Eyes, and that's what got me the gig, and that's what put me in Ireland, is because I had pitched myself to go to Ireland because I'd never been out of the United States, and I didn't even have a passport. And Jen Griffin, our producer, was like, "I'm just saying you should get a passport because magical doors will open to you." And I like, okay. And I took that, as it was, and went and got a passport. And then I told her I got a passport, and she's like, "All right, well, we're going to want you to stay behind because we love you and trust you. And we want you to look over the warehouse while everyone's gone to Ireland." And I was like, "Oh, bummer, but that's cool. No worries." And then I got a text that said, "How tall are you?" And I said, 6 foot, 6'1". And they said, "Do you have blue eyes?" I said, "Yeah." They're like, "All right, you're going with us to Ireland." So having blue eyes got me that gig, and it didn't hurt that he was an archer and I had already been an archer for 15 years, 20 years maybe. He was my favorite to play because it got me to go to Ireland, which was awesome. His costume was the coolest, and I think his character had, this is just me being super nerdy, but I think his character had a lot of impact in that first episode where he chose to let Tadlin live, because that demon blocked an arrow, but he knocked another one and he missed her, and that demon didn't reappear. So that was all up to him at that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, that was because he just had more depth, even though it was just me going like this and bugging my eyes out when I saw a demon hand. He still had more depth and more interest, and I do like that he was kind of a cold-blooded, angry, assassin, stealthy character that kind of changed his mind in an instant when he saw something that just was totally unbelievable. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Completely different path than what he was hired to do that night. So that was my favorite, just long story short.
Awesome. What was it like playing a grayskin? The fight scenes and the costume. Doug posted a lot of pictures for us on Twitter and stuff of the big old
that face,
legs, and the body. What entailed being able to walk in that thing? Was it extra legs, or was it just you and you being tall?
I know it's extra legs. There's, I think, 2 foot of the costume, or 1.5 feet that's just stilts made of 2x4s that Clark Schaefer knocked up for us. Brilliant man. And we were playing with. I'm kind of the guinea pig of Aerostorm. Ask anyone, and they'll tell you. If anyone's doing it, Josh has probably done it first because they had to make sure it was safe by putting me through the meat grinder. So there was a good month-long period where I was trying on experimental stilts made out of like household items, and which I would be walking around going clock, 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 and then fall over into the dirt, and go, "This is wrong with it. We need to fix this," and then trying it again. But being a grayskin was a bit challenging at first, and more challenging than I thought, because the people that do that kind of stuff full time have some tremendous leg strength and discipline, muscular discipline. And I'm kind of just a couch nerd. So I have the body of a Dorito where I'm top and I have fish legs below. So I didn't build up that discipline right away. I was just kind of like, this is cool. And then after 5 minutes, I was like, ow, my toes really hurt, because you're walking on your toes like this. Because that's the way it's amped up to go down and then into the foot. So it was a little difficult, and I expected something completely different. because I expected it to be more comfortable, but it wasn't because, again, I haven't built up that dexterity. And then by the time we were doing that, it was really hard to walk in one of the feet. And I never knew what it was. And I was tripping and falling over, and you'll see me trying to like catch my balance every so often. And on the last day of being a grayskin, I'd been a grayskin probably 5-6 times. And 3 of those days, I think maybe 4 were full-time days. So like, 9 to 12, 13 hours in the suit.
Wow.
And I had them look at him. I was like, hey, because we always had 3 costumes for the Grayskins, and it was always me and 2 other guys. And those 2 other guys mostly changed out, and then I was always the one. So I had them check the feet, and I said, hey, can you do me a favor and check the bottoms of the feet to see which one's different? And they're like, yeah, one of them's different. And I was like, what's wrong with it? He's like, one of them has a heel, and the other one doesn't. So that was the big hiccup, was early on in filming, a wooden heel had broken off of the stilt, and no one ever noticed. Certainly I never noticed. So I was walking on a nice comfortable zone, and then something on a ball point on my. So that was crazy, especially because we're climbing like sand dunes that are like, 45, 50 feet up to the rocks and climbing out. I was also Shaw Magus, I think was his name. When Janzo and Talon go to buy the Calypsum, and the main grayskin with the staff is trying to like bargain with them and stuff like that. That was me. Which that was my second favorite character probably, because I got yeah, that was me too. I was the one trying to get Garrett to do Calypsum, and waking them up with my scent stick of awakeness. And, that was probably the hardest night to film, because Jake and Talon and Anan are hilarious people, as well as myself. So we're getting half in trouble between takes because we're laughing our ass off because of something one person said or that I did or a look that I gave, Garrett. And there's the scene where I've got the hand full of Calypso in him. I'm trying to get him to take it, like, smell it, and he goes and blows it all. And it's all in my face because I'm bald. So I don't have to wear a mask or a helmet. I just have to have these X's on my forehead that says that's where the face should be. So I'm just unprotected from the Calypsum. It's just all over my face. So Jake had to like blow Calypsum into my face and then try his best not to laugh at me having just Calypsum all in my eyes and nose and beard and everything. It was challenging. The stunts were a little challenging because what we were walking in, a lot of times that you see people in stilts, they're walking on firm ground or on apple boxes, seeming higher than they are. Whereas those stunts, I was in stilts higher up than normal with my center of gravity tilted much more forward and stepping in soft sand. So there's when Talon is up at the tower when they fall for the trap, the grayskin trap, and the one runs up to her and attacks her. That's me. And we worked out choreography where I was hitting her and everything like that. And there was one point where she grabs the spear out from under the tower and jabs the grayskin in the stomach, and he falls over. Her aim wasn't so good on the 4th take, and she aimed to my stomach but hit much further down than I would have liked her to do. And then I fell over for real. As, they're just like, just fall over. And I was like, ah! And then we had a good laugh about that later. Yeah, so it was challenging, but it was also very fun. So yeah.
That's awesome. That's
kind of
awesome.
Go off on a tangent. I apologize.
No, you're fine. We love all the information we can get. That's why we do this.
I have soaked up much information over the past couple years on the Outpost.
You've definitely been there, done that a lot, repetitively.
So I don't know if we went over this last time. I don't think we did, but I was also a Jake Stormoen double for one scene.
Okay, how did that work? Like,
I've got a picture somewhere around here. I'm going to go ahead and show it to the camera. And we'll see. Here we are. I hope Jake's out there watching or at least hears about this. But so wearing Jake's clothes and then making muscles for him and then sending a picture, of course, of that to him.
That's awesome. That is
And then
priceless.
there you go. So you've got this. I'm probably twice Jake's size and probably, I don't know, 75 pounds heavier than him. And I probably have him by 6 inches or so in height. So needless to say, and of course he's way more fit than I am, more in shape. So it was a stretch putting all those clothes on. And when I say stretch, I don't mean to pun, but that's exactly what.
I'm sorry. I am gonna have to break turn. It kind of looks like you're in a Billy shirt, dude. Like.
Oh yeah.
This didn't like your chest hair.
They will totally snip that connection if they find it too saucy, especially here. The stretch, putting all those clothes on. And when I say stretch, I don't mean to pun, but it's
like our cackling is on live, but let's make sure we're live. I'm just of all the timing in the world.
Yeah.
That was spot on. So
comedy's all timing, and I'm nothing if not on time for that.
That's hilarious.
I'm double checking that we're back online, and then we can get back.
I like to think of it like some in a YouTube kid as like some, white-haired librarian-looking old white woman at Comcast with a big red button in front of her, and she's watching all the YouTube channels, and then that comes up and it has warning, and she goes, "Not on my watch," and then hits it. Not today, Satan, and then hits the button, and then. This
is literally going to be the first thing I tell my coworkers when I come in tomorrow morning.
For the record, she works at Comcast.
Yeah, by the way, that's why I keep saying sorry.
Oh, she knows. She knows Miss Bixby then. Miss Bixby. She has like the binoculars.
Just tooting back in. Let me double.
As is punishment here in Utah.
Hold on. I'm just gonna fix this thing in my system real quick. I will just put you on a quick hold because
from set, just half on, half off.
Stuff I do, it's just like, hey, are you available? Can you do it? Because they know I'm going to, because I'm me. So I just end up shanghaied, hanging from a crane in like a green trash bag to be a CGI, spinning around like, waiting to be filmed. Either way. And then I think I got it in 3 takes, where I cut the sword. The first time I cut the rope with a sword, and there was. And the next time we hooked it up, and I was just like, I'll just hit it harder. That's fine. So, and I wish you could see, I wish we could have tagged Jess in that, because that was hilarious. The dummy with the wig on. It was a funny day. It was a really.
Eating with the sword take story.
Yep.
Perfect. So we're going to try to get back on track. We do apologize for our difficulties. Apparently, sort of protest. That said, I believe.
Okay, here we go. Along with a lot of the stuff that you have done for the Outpost, has been a lot of your leather working. Where did you learn that? How did you get into it? Do you sell it? If so, where can people get it? All that good stuff.
Yeah. I learned mostly like 95% on my own. Leatherworking, which means I wasted a lot of my time and a lot of money failing miserably for many years trying to make the perfect leatherworking thing, and just being stubborn and not knowing a lot of people that did it at the time. So most of my knowledge came from just YouTube and fumbling around, treating it like it was paper, doing little cutouts here and there. A girl forever ago at a Renaissance fair had Lisa. Her name was Lisa. She had a wristband that was really cool, and I liked it, and she wouldn't sell it, and she wouldn't tell me where she got it from. And then one day she traded it to me for a necklace that I had or something like that. And I was like, sweet. And, I found out that was like $40. Like, and I was like, well, I'm a poor, 20-something-year-old man. I'm not going to afford that. I'm going to go make my own. It'll be cheaper. And lo and behold, did I go to the leather factory and spend $50 on leather tools, and then go home and then spent, like training montage, sweating and like focus on the eyes, everything perfect, only to make the shittiest bracelet you've ever seen in your life. Like 10 more of those, and they were really bad, and I threw those away. And then I went back and I spent like $200 something buying more materials and more leather and more tools. And then I made some that were okay looking. And then I looked up some YouTube videos and, you know, started learning what the tools were and what I should be doing. And then over the course of that first year, I probably spent $2,000 something just on leather and tools to make really crappy looking stuff. But I kept with it because let's face it, success is nothing more than standing upon a mountain of your own failures. So you have to fail in order to succeed. So I did that for a couple years, and finally someone was like, "Oh, that's awesome. Can I buy that from you?" And I was like, "Oh, sure." And then someone was like, "Hey, would you make me one? I'll pay you." And I was like, "Oh, cool, yeah." It started taking on a life of its own. And I started leatherworking probably in 2010, 2011, something like that. And I obviously it's been paying my bills, and I'm not skinny by any means, so something's been going right. Where you can buy my stuff. You can buy my stuff at Renaissance fairs that I attend, or that some people carry my stuff at, which are on the East Coast in Florida most of the time. Conventions that I attend, and I set up a booth and I sell my leatherwork and all my knives and all my swords off the table. And you can message me on Facebook and or Instagram or text me, or if you have my digits or what have you, or Twitter, and go, "Hey, I want this." Or you can go to my website and go, "I like that. Can I have one of those?" Because most of the stuff I make now that are like, you know, I say mass produced, meaning I make like 30 of them to 50 of them at a time, and then I sell them over the course of the year.
Right.
My phone pouches. I've got one to show you. That's my handy dandy phone pouch. It clicks on. It goes right there on my pocket or my belt. Phone and all my debit cards and all my information right there.
Awesome.
So those are kind of my little patented things.
Somehow smaller than my woman's wallet.
I'm more of a minimalist nature. I do have rings on the back sometimes that I can click keys onto, or my Boston Terrier, so he can go for a ride. So it ends up weighing like 50 pounds for the pouch. But I do like little bracelets here and there, and armor sometimes when I have time. And I mostly nowadays shy away from commissions and mostly just make whatever I want to. And if you want to buy it, cool. And if you don't, I love it anyway, and I get to keep it. So win-win.
Best of both worlds. Yeah.
You know, my Etsy, I have an Etsy shop that's, I believe, Dark Archer Design. You can tell how much I stock it and or attend to it by not knowing what my own shop is called. But yeah, Dark Archer Design on Etsy is what it is. But yes, and my website, of course, darkarcherdesign.com, is where a gallery of all the leather stuff I've made is. So if you're interested in that, but I've been meaning to get my Etsy up and maybe a store on my Facebook, or even a storefront here in Utah, which would, you know, be awesome. So yeah, I still make leather stuff nowadays, but I do a lot of metalwork now with swords and knives and stuff like that, which are super fun. Which I learned about 2-3 years ago through a man named Chris Fields at Sterling Armory. He took me on and taught me the basics, and then I kind of went off on my own from there and was like, "Oh, okay, that's how you do it. Okay, I'm going to go crazy this way." But I learned the art so much faster because someone showed me what to do. I could build off of that. Whereas opposed, I'm like, cut leather, glue it together. That looks stupid. I'm done. You know. So.
How did you get into doing the Ren fairs and the horseback archery and all of that? You mentioned a passion for that.
Oh yeah. For Renaissance fairs, the first Renaissance fair I ever went to was probably in 2003, 2004. And I just fell in love with it. Everyone was wearing costumes. They were having mead and ciders, and there was sword fighting, and then there was this and then that, and then trampolines, and there are fairies, and there's knights and sword fighting, and it was just what's not to like. So, and plus you get to dress up in a costume, which, let's face it, that's all I want to do in life anyway, is be in a costume half the time, which I do. I have more costumes than I have real clothes. So a friend of mine was like, "Hey, do you want to do some work for me at the Renaissance Fair? You're going to be running the bunny fencing booth." And I was like, "What's that?" He's like, "You basically sword fight kids all day, or let them sword fight each other. And then you put a balloon on their head, and then you try and pop the balloon with this fencing sword." And I was like, "Yeah, that's fun." And I get paid to do that? What? So I've been doing that with Kevin Daniels. He's got a little bar called Waypoint 6 out in St. Pete. It's like a nerd bar, Star Wars and Star Trek themed. and just fun stuff. Either way, that was a shameless plug for him. You're welcome, Kevin. So he's important in my life because he employed me to do that to begin with, and then ended up not being so much a lot of kids, but so much a lot of like drunk old guys, crazy drunk old women, and crazy drunk teenagers trying to beat my ass with a sword. So, which was incredibly fun. So I've done that for many years, and then I started doing trampoline jumping, bungee cords, and that was fun. And eventually, I just kind of got old to the point where I'm like, I want to be more comfortable and make more money. So of course, the only way to do that is to work for yourself. So I started going, you know what? I could probably get a booth and do my leather work and just sit there. And that's what I do now. I sit there with my feet up and I drink a big thing of mead out of a horn. And then I stare at people until they want to talk about swords or leather, and then I just hang out.
Envy, like, what does it take? If I move to Utah, can I get hired there? But no.
Right. Yeah, there's a crazy waiting list and of people that would love to get hired. As far as like mounted archery is something new to me. I've always done archery, but I've never ridden a horse until like April of last year, when Stacy Hornsby was like, "Yeah, come to the clinic and we'll teach you." And then by the end of the class, I was doing a canter and shooting and hitting targets that you're going to demoing. You did pretty good in practices. Do you want to? And this was probably like, I don't know, a month after I went to my first clinic on horse-mounted archery. And they're like, do you want to demo with us? And I was like, yeah, sure. That sounds fun. Are you kidding me? I get to like talk about leather and swords and dress up in a costume and drink mead and ride a horse and shoot a bow. That's all I want. So I ended up doing that. And it's kind of stuck with me. And I don't get to ride and do mounted archery as much as I'd like, but I get to loose arrows plenty enough. And it's funny, this past Saturday, Jake. Jake Stormoen came out and loosed some arrows with me. And we hung out for, 30, 40 minutes and shot some arrows and just laughed about the outpost times.
Wish they haven't yet. Is there a project, job, or a dream that you'd love to do in the future, whether close or distant, or is drinking and shooting off horseback the peak?
You make it sound so depressing.
No, trust me.
No.
I'm in awe.
I tend to live life in the present and do it, one day at a time. So I have zero plans for tomorrow or a week. There's a couple things. I'd like to have my own little shop where I get to make swords and knives and leather armor all day long and sketch and teach people how to do those things, and have a little archery range out back, and little forge set up, and grow old in the mountains and die fist fighting a bear. That's kind of the pinnacle, I think, is being really old and naked fist fighting a bear. And that way, either I live and I'm that badass old guy that fought a bear, or I'm just that crazy old guy that just gets eaten by a bear and I have no idea. That's probably the height of my life, I think. But there's certain things like that I want to do, and I just want to live well and smile and just have fun. And that's kind of what everything's doing. Probably not as complicated brain picking answer as you were hoping for. I apologize. I'm a very simple ape.
I've been rolling over here. I've had to keep myself muted. Now, we're going to be getting to Chris doing audience questions here. We've been collecting them through the stream. But real quick, right before, she'll jump in right after. But you've told a story before of the design of the phallic plagueling poker. And that was one of that's the hardest I've laughed in a while. So go ahead and that, and then Chris can pick up.
The dreaded mouth penis. That's the worst. So about they had a plagueling, and I mostly do, and you can ask Jen Griffin, I volunteer for a lot of the stuff that I get made to do because I think it sounds like a great idea. And then I realize, oh crap, I have to do that and everything else I was supposed to do to begin with. So one of those was the plaguelings. They had a plagueling idea, and I love designing creatures and monsters and stuff like that. So I was like, I could probably do that. And they're like, okay, cool. You've got this to do. Make that your Monday priority. And I was like, all right, cool. It'll be done. So I also designed that tentacle that grabs Jake out of the water, which was also, and then Chris Hansen built that for us, as well as the plagueling mouth. Either way, so they asked me to build or design that. So I was talking to Emily, our costume designer, Emily Jacobson, and she was like, we had a meeting about it a while ago, and we all agreed that it should look like a penis coming out of the mouth and then biting people. And I you know, I'm not going to fight that. That's genius. You know, there's nothing worse I can think of than an alien biting me than if it looked like an alien penis biting me. That's kind of tops the gun. So either way, I designed quite a few things that looked very penisy, and took it up to the higher ups to be oogled at and give me feedback. And I think Kynan Griffin was like, "It's a little too," and I went, "Peninsular?" And he went, "Peninsula, yes." I had to scale it back. The peninsulatude of the drawing had to be scaled back, and I had to bring it down a peg or two. And they were like, "Yeah." And I was like, "What do you?" The only design element they gave me to go off of was it should look like a penis. So I tried to make it look like not too much like a penis, but just enough to where you'd think that. And then Kynan gave me the design things. He's like, it should look like a grub worm with pinchers at it. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Well, I could do that, no problem. And then I gave him something like 2 hours later that was exactly what it was. And they're like, oh yeah, that's perfect, cool. But yeah, so there's always that haunting of, and I walked in their office one day, much after this, and the way they operate is much like any other, brilliant-minded, crazy people do, is there's just pins of cards poked into the wall and stuff written on plate glass to remind her, and tape holding a piece of paper up that had something they thought of earlier. And I walk in the room, knock on the door, and come in, and I look to my left, and there, in a little white card, is written, "Mouth penis." And it kind of took me away that evidence existed that that's what I should have been drawing. And I just kind of was like, oh my God, dang. Then again, it could have been a card that was like, this is what we want to stay away from. And then it played a huge prank on me, and I totally fell for it.
I'm crying. Chris, I think you've got audience questions because we had some delay with the whole, Your Evil Planet Comcast. I'd say take enough questions to take us toward the top of the hour, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks for sharing, Josh.
No problem.
That was something.
I gotta check my phone.
Fun.
Let me check I might have a message from Jen Greffin that says, "Shut up right now. We heard mouth penis on the air." All right, no, we're good. All right.
I do have some questions here from the audience.
Okay.
The first one's kind of a two-parter. So the first part is from Angie. What is your favorite weapon that you have designed / made?
Right now, my favorite weapon that I've designed / made is probably a longsword. Probably a longsword. This one. So I'm a big fan of The Witcher.
Here it is.
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of The Witcher, so I tried my first go at twisting bronze. So I heated up and twisted it all out. And
nice.
Then did like a little, it's called a ferrule right here. And it's really cool, and I love it. You can tell because it's right beside my desk. Just a couple swords. It's weird, right? Because as an artist, you're like always making your favorite things, and then you're forced to be part with them if someone else loves them and wants to buy them. And you're like, cool, I'll sell it, but I don't know if I really want to, but then I have to.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I know. It's depressing. That's kind of my favorite thing right now. It's just, and I've made probably 8 long swords and 3 arming swords and 2 bastard swords over the past 3 months. But that's still my favorite weapon so far is the longsword. It doesn't even have to be that one. Just any longsword I've made so far.
Well, the second part of that, thanks for showing us that, by the way. That was awesome. The second part is, what was the most difficult thing that you have been asked, design, or make?
Aside from the penis? No.
Aside from the mouth penis.
That was the most difficult because I spent so much time looking at the mouth penis. know, I wake up in a cold sweat, imagining being bitten by a plagueling. Yeah, and that's on a tangent. That's why, you know, H.R. Geiger, was such a genius, because he designed things that you'd want to scream. Something like a mouth penis coming at you to bite you.
Aside from
You
the
know,
penis, after the penis, the next most.
right, and then you're like, you know, just like in, what was it, Prometheus, where the engineer is like at the gates, and then the big thing comes out and grabs him. Like, that's designed for me as a victim to go, whoosh, holy, oh, and then it's too late. It's already laid eggs in me because I screamed, because it looks horrifying. The hardest thing probably was the R&D on the Covenant swords, because I had to make something like 12 or 13 real Covenant swords, and then 8 or 9 fake ones with a foam sword blade, and then the handles, and I had to duplicate all of them. And I had never done anything like that before. Before I just kind of manned up and was like, you know what, just do it. The worst you can do is fail, and you'll look stupid for a day, and then you'll do it again. So, I did it, and it was a weird process, because I wasn't able to cast my own blades like you would normally do, because again, I haven't done that before. So I had to take all these crazy swords, the swords that we'd order, and then cut them down on a bandsaw, which was all fiberglass and, you know, polystyrene, and I'd have to just like squinch through it to keep from getting destroyed by all the fiberglass, and make it where it was safe to put it down. Then I had to build the handles, and then mix a whole bunch of gloop and thread it with a piece of leather core, and then jam it down there and let it dry. And it was a really like nightmarish experiment, coupled by the fact that I had to do them, I think, in like 2 days. So I had 2 days to do something I've never done before, and then do it 15 times or whatever it was. So that was the first big scare, and I was just like, I just don't know if I can do this. And then I did, and then it really wasn't that bad after that.
It sounds like a very messy process.
Oh yeah, I had, my fingers were glued like moose antlers for the first 3 days, when all the epoxy finally dried on me, and I'm a hairy bastard, so I had to shave all that off, and all the glue got stuck in there, and it was a nightmare. But again, it was only a nightmare for the first time panicking. Probably the scariest experience I ever had on the outpost, though, reminding me, was Ireland. Like, I wanted to go to Ireland, and that's a chance not a lot of people get, let alone get your tip paid for it just to go for work. And when I landed in Ireland, I immediately went to IKEA, salmon and mashed potatoes, which probably wasn't, hindsight, the best idea I've ever had in my life. But I immediately contracted some kind of stomach bug that made me very volatile for like a week in the gut area. And I had to be prop master and the wolf, and, fix all this stuff while being terribly sick. And it just was it was really scary for me for the first 2 or 3 days. And I had this overwhelming sense of panic. Whereas usually I'm just kind of calm and cool as a cucumber and like, whatever, it is what it is. But here were these people, A, counting on me to finish this job, to do this job, and B, being in a strange land I've never been in before, and C, sick off my ass. So with no way to like get over jet lag, because the minute, that's how Aerostorm rolls. The minute the plane wheels hit the ground, you're working. So after that 15 whatever hour it was, like, plane ride from New York to Ireland, it was wheels up and we were wheels down. We were working. So I couldn't catch up on sleep right away. And even if I could, I was ridiculously sick, and that was bad. And then on the second, I think we had like a week to prep, and then 2 days, 3 days to film. And then on that first film day, I was like, it's going to be okay, because I was just sitting on set, and I was propping out everything, and then I was like, it's fine, it's going to be okay. We just have to these 3 days, and we're good. And then we did, and it was another one of those life lessons. Like, you can worry if you want to, but it's not going to change the outcome. It's not going to change what's going to happen. You just have to just kind of take it as it is. Yeah, it sucks, but ride that out, and you're fine. So sorry, I droned on.
No, that's all good.
Sorry, Angie.
Actually, there is one. I'm gonna skip over the other ones here, because this one needs to be asked. I'm glad it was asked. So Angie's other question was, what is the Calypso made out of?
Besides like script storyline wise?
Yeah, like prop wise.
I think it's like oregano. It's like stunt oregano or something like that. It doesn't have like a terrible smell to it, or I can't say it doesn't have a weird taste to it because I haven't eaten it yet. Because I'm not supposed to eat my props, which I've totally done in the past, by the way. I've eaten so many props, mostly edible, obviously, like raisin bread and cheese, and, you know, meat and stuff like that.
That, yeah, probably. I'm stuck on the part that it's stuck on you saying mostly edible.
Yeah, well, there's been some stuff that I didn't know wasn't edible until I couldn't eat it.
I have another question here for you from Lisa. I'm going to put it in two parts. One, she wants to know if you are, quote, the fellow that does the chainmail, and two, she would like to know how you would make the chainmail, where you can get the supplies and so on.
I am not the guy that made the chainmail. That was either David Powell or Jeffrey or Minka or some of the earlier people in the armory room. And for making chainmail, a lot of people either order it off of, there's an Indian website, I believe, called beststuff.com or something like that. And they have chainmail shirts you can order. So a lot of people just order them straight made and then tailor them to themselves. I don't know if they come in sheets, but I believe, I think they come in aluminum, stainless steel, and aluminum being the stunt ones you would want to wear because they're much cheaper and much more comfortable, lighter. And they may come in sheets, but I don't remember where they got them. I apologize. I'm kind of out on that question. If I find any, I'll ask Dave here at the workshop, and if he has some, I can always get back to them with an email or something, or a link where we would go get ours.
That would be fantastic. Yeah, thanks.
I do know it's much like a weaving process. From what I remember about it, is linking every single ring onto each other, and thus it's such a nightmare that I would never go near it.
Okay, so I'd say
also, I've had a really bad experience trying on a chainmail T-shirt at Universal Studios when I was like 18, 19 years old, and doing it without an undershirt. So I didn't realize all the links would catch all my hair around my chest, pulling it up. So it just kind of was the most painful thing that's ever happened to me. So I try and stay away from chainmail.
Oh, a lot of these props and designs all involve your hair in some way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I would say
Cool.
grab one more really, really good one, and then we should start wrapping because we've pinned this poor man here for an hour after Comcast decided to rip out. I'm going to blame you.
No, I'm sorry. Just pretty much what I spent all day doing. But anyway, have one more here. Oh, here's another one. I'm gonna butcher your name, and I'm sorry. I go. So asked, do you prefer being on screen now, or would you rather stay in the shop?
Oh, both. It's still both. Because I love being behind the screen in the workshop because I can get my thing done, and then I have almost like a cool down period where I can sit and watch, you know, my Lord of the Rings movies and The Hobbit and cartoons, and wait for something to go wrong so I can run and fix it, and that's cool. And I don't have to worry about being on set because they take sometimes forever to reset lighting and do other kinds of stuff. But I also really like being in front of the camera and goofing off. Like, it's rewarding. And then you get that big smile on your face when you're like, that's me. You know? And then your mom and your aunt and your uncle call you and go, oh my God, we saw you. It was you. And then, you know, you have to hide in shame because it was you. And they're like, you should have did better. We expected more. My family's very supportive. That's all lies and made up. Um, it's difficult. Like I'd probably, it's one of those things where I love making stuff, so I'd rather be in the shop. But at the same time, the people using the stuff I make and wearing the stuff I make usually work a lot less hours and get paid more than me. So, both worlds. I'd rather do both worlds, and it's not even about paying and work because I work like a fiend and a madman anyway. And as long as I have enough food and money in the bank for bills and enough food for me and my family, then that's fine. So it's both, because I'd rather experience more things than not enough.
It is a very good way to look at it. Yeah. So, like Min mentioned them, so blanked on your name. We are done with our audience questions here. So we're don't want to have you kidnapped here all night. So
yeah, no worries.
But, before we head out, is there anything else you want to say or plug or?
Not really. Come to Evermore Park, hang out with me. Bring me some steak. Do some arrows with me.
I can crash and I will be there. Shay can testify. I will make the meanest steak you have ever put in your face.
I'm all right with that. That's fine. I carry this like Ziploc bag full of A1 steak sauce tucked into my bra. So whenever highbrow steak restaurants, I just like squeeze it out. But no, I'm very approachable. If anyone has any questions on how to do things, I'd rather there be knowledge not shared dies alone. And that's a sad thing to me. So if anyone has any questions on how to do something or how I would do it, or even if I don't know the answer, I'll help you find one. I'm more than willing to show people and teach people what I know. And, if you just if you're in the area and want to come by and shoot some arrows at the park, yeah, let me know. And if I have time, I'll have lunch or whatever. Just whatever you need answered, I'll answer it for you.
That's awesome. Well, thanks again for coming to talk with us today, Josh. We really love the heart and dedication that you put into everything. You're just an awesome guy and very cool to hang with. So thank you.
I gotta say, you are a blast to have. We've probably laughed harder and had to mute our own microphones more times than everyone else combined. I'm hoping the audience enjoyed it, and to them, I want to say, thanks again for watching, Cult fans. Keep tuning in. Find out more about Josh and where to check out his work in the description below. And, stay tuned. We're going to have Elizabeth Berkner next week, who played Ilian, a.k.a. Creepy Girl, a.k.a. Spoiler. And then we'll also be having Charon Prabhakar coming for a live feature here soon. So, bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for having me on.